Anybody want a water?
I'll get it, thanks, man.
The Cedar Point was probably should bet, to be honest. But they put the thing out, I got locked in. I had to, you know,
Alright,
but I got it locked in.
how's Woody?
And my bar popped up.
He's being a jerk.
The weight, the dissolve, no, I couldn't get pressure now. So I literally, so I stuck it under the seat in front of me and I just
Like procedural,
held
okay.
on to that thing and had my feet like grip. And finally we got on the bottom of it, push it down, and it locked again. I'm thinking,
You know, the sugar finger is, chocolate.
Well, yeah, he's had it. You know what? He needs to break it up with it.
yeah, you care so, I think you care so.
Thank you, Katie.
Hey.
We'll wish for his speedy recovery.
Yeah, Kate, thanks for doing this. I don't know why that one would not open up. The rest of them opened fine, and it would give you like the second page. Yeah. Yeah, this is like part one, this is the rest of it, yeah, it's the same. You can get this part, okay, and I had like the old copies, but I that part, I got, this I wanted to.
Alright, everybody's mics on?
Yes, sir.
Now, are these
So was three, where is he?
public
Is he here?
interviews right now?
Yes, they are.
Oh, we're doing them, okay, I wasn't sure.
The clock is at 3, so let's go ahead and please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to those that are tuning in online. Very excited for the candidate interviews that will take place. And with that being said, Katie, can you please call roll?
Schumate,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Cosmore,
Here.
McNabb,
Here.
Molnar,
Here.
Valentine,
Here.
Wood. Here.
Fantastic. We will give a moment for the candidate to arrive at the podium, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I'll say a few words to open up, and we'll set the same tone for each of the candidate interviews.
So we're gonna just take turns, everybody take turns, ask a question?
Absolutely. We'll follow the same model we did for the last interviews, if everybody's supportive of that, which we'll start with Amy and go around.
Terrific.
He is here, by the way. He's doing a tour with Vince right now.
Doing a tour, right,
So he's on deck.
of the facilities. You got quite a resume, actually. It's from Detroit.
We're ready. We have pledged, we have rolled, and we are ready.
All right.
What is the date today? We are at
Second.
3-2. 4-2. What am I doing? That's right. When you're retired, man, you're just, none of them numbers even work anymore. Yeah.
Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
Mayor Schuett.
Yeah, Shoemate, pleasure.
Forgive me.
Pleasure to have you here. I'm going to say some opening words, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Very good.
So to all of the members sitting to the right and left of me, and to our candidate, Aaron, I'd like to open up with a couple things. Number one, this is a publicly recorded and broadcasted meeting. So I want to make sure, Aaron, that you're aware of that. We have residents and broader individuals that are attending online, perhaps. And we record these meetings, and they remain public. Number two is, as far as the operation for today, what we're going to be doing, Council, is going across the chambers, starting with our Finance Director, Amy. And I ask that each one of you ask the question as we go in order of the questions we've designed for today's session. Council, what I'd ask of you is to ensure that as we're going through the questions, that you're documenting your comments and insights that you capture on the sheets provided. Once the candidate interview has closed, I'd ask that you just take a moment to make sure everything is captured thoroughly. And if council is open to the concept, I'd like to also just have you maybe document a quick thought process on the conclusion of the interview. For example, recognizing that we have many candidates to interview, maybe an initial preliminary reaction on, yes, we feel like this could be a suitable candidate. No, we feel like this would not be a suitable candidate. Or the third option being, we'll hold on the burner as we navigate all the candidates and options we have forward. My why for this ask and the documentation and the initial reaction is, Council, I really would suggest that as we go through the 4 candidate interviews today, that you take some time to digest and reflect, and that we convene a discussion around our findings next Monday. And the importance of the documentation, in addition to the yes, no, or hold on the burner, is so that you have a nice mindset captured that you can reflect on, and then we can revisit that come Monday. So that would be my ask for the operation. Open any feedback you may have on that, but I think that'd be a good way to manage today's sessions, especially given that we're going to be here for some time together, and I want to make sure that we have everything captured. The third thing that I'll say is when we look at today's flow of operation, we'll have 2 candidate interviews, then we'll have a break, and we'll need a motion to recess for break, a motion to resume the meeting, proceed with the 2 candidate interviews remaining, and then we'll close. Council, any questions? Department heads, any questions on today's operation?
Let's get it on.
All right. Well, Aaron, we are so grateful that you are here today, and we'll have Amy kick us off.
Question 1 is if you could provide an opening statement about yourself and what do you know about Gibraltar?
Sure. Myself, what I know about Gibraltar, quite a bit. I guess would go back to my youngest days when I had an uncle who had a property in Rockwood, just about a mile or 2 down the road. So as youth, we would come out here quite a bit. I remember when they were building the Lake Erie Metro Park back when. Don't want to show my age, but I remember nothing but good times from Gibraltar. My dad worked at McLeod Steel, retired from there, the plant in Trenton. So always with him, he wasn't working, pick up the paycheck. Many of my friends, natural progression for us Southwest Detroiters to move downriver, and a few of them have relocated in Gibraltar to this day. So I've got a pretty good sense. Above and beyond that, I've always considered myself to be something of a downriver person. Again, growing up Southwest Detroit, all of our shopping growing up, the Melvindale and the Kmart in Melvindale, Sears in Lincoln Park, shopping up and down Fort Street. And when we would go for recreation, friends that had boats, my uncle had a place, we were always in the waters in and around nearby in Gibraltar. Actively involved in the running and biking community, and a couple times a year we have bike rides that go from Southwest Detroit downriver. We'll touch onto the island, come up. Usually our midway stop is somewhere in Wyandotte, Captains, what have you, but it gives us a chance. We consider ourselves the organizers of our biking group, which has about 1,200 members, to be ambassadors for Detroit, and that gives a chance for folks that might be from outside the area, Oakland County, Macomb, to come out and see the other great parts of the area, which includes downriver and the city of Gibraltar. And I guess very lastly, my ties to Gibraltar, I worked at Boblo Island in the summer of 1991 and 92. I had an internship, and when they did away with the steamers back in 91, of course, our U.S. operations were in Humbug Marina. And so plenty of time down here during that, and even coming in today up Middle Gibraltar Road to see the old Boblo Pavilion. it's nice. It brought back some good memories.
Thank you, Aaron. Any clarifying questions or comments from council? I'll just ask one follow-up question on that. Can you perhaps, I know we know you on paper, but could you just provide a brief summary of your story, a little bit about your professional and personal background beyond what you've shared as it relates to the role that you're pursuing today?
Absolutely. I graduate of Holy Redeemer High School in Southwest Detroit. My undergraduate is from Aquinas College, Grand Rapids, Michigan. MBA, Master's in Business from Wayne State University. My employment started out with with an offshoot of Ford Motor Company. I was a procurement specialist. Then went to the old AirTouch Cellular, which was absorbed into what we now know as Verizon Communications back when. I then spent some time, I was a manager in psych patient services and operating room services for the Detroit Medical Center, whereby I then went to Wayne County government, and that's where my government portion of my career has taken me. I was 5 years as a manager of finance for the Department of Environment. We had 5 divisions. Most here should be familiar with the Wyandotte treatment plant. That fell under our purview. Along with, we had the air quality division. Regrettable that that's gone. That left around 2000, but the state took it over, but we really had good control. But I realized back then how important stewardship was for the environment, particularly downriver, which has its share of pollution, factories, the BASF, just levee, what have you. We lost that operation. It's too bad because I felt the community was hurting that. And as they say in life, you are the sum total of all your experiences. And it's never escaped me that I felt like we were let down as a community, as a county, that we lost our air quality operations. I think that we still suffer to this day. A lot of my recreation is still in Southwest Detroit. And I do have the phone number for the state DNR DEQ. When I still see something taking place in the environment that's remiss, I'm sure to call it in. It just, I don't feel that there's a lot of attention taking place. 5 years in the Department of Environment before I went to Economic Development, 5 years that I was the Brownfields manager for Wayne County. So I was responsible for applying and administrating federal funds for our efforts, and I was successful. I successfully petitioned, again, these are early 2000s or so dollars, about $3 million worth of funding from the feds for our phase 1, our phase 2 assessments on site. So if you come at me and say, I want to develop a piece of land, but there was a factory on it at one time, no problem. We'll be out there with the phase 1 to ensure that there wasn't anything horrible on it, that you could develop on that, and if there was limitations, like for a business, that a clay liner, that everything is going to be fine, so you could have some movement on that, not for dwelling purposes. Did that for 5 years. Worked on some projects in the downriver region. The old McCrory Toy site in Wyandotte, near the railroad tracks, was one of the sites that we helped the city of Wyandotte remediate. They also had their own brownfield authority back then, as I recall. And we also, further north in Ecorse, we had another site. It was a Saliat development. We partnered with a local church there to develop low to moderate income housing. So again, some ties to the downriver ways. After that, went to Detroit Wayne Mental Health Authority, where I was a manager of compliance for 7 years. And I was responsible for, of our 650 plus providers of mental health care across about a 5-county region, to ensure that all of the rules were being applied, posters were set up, and that the consumers, right, as we call them, the mental health recipients, that they were taken care of. These were spot checks. These were visits made in advance. And the system that I inherited was in a pretty tough way. We had about 5, 6 different folks that were conducting these annual reviews. These were required by the state of Michigan. They weren't being done. The paperwork was all over the place. I came in there single-handedly, visited every site, and we had sites wherever the Wayne County consumers go, we follow. So we had folks even on the far-flung in Ottawa County, over on the other side of the state, And there I was once a year to visit the site ourselves to make sure that all the rules were being applied, that our posters, paraphernalia were on the walls for them. And because of that, when we came under our triannual state audit, the department itself didn't do well, but my area did. And we were called out as having very thorough records, easily accessible, and everything was put in place to ensure that we were running a quality operation out of the compliance area. So after that 7 years, I was a city manager for the city of Clawson in southern Oakland County, a position that lasted a little shy of a year, and responsible for 7 departments, for managing a budget of $15 million, and there's a population of roughly 10,000 citizens in the city of Clawson, directing all operations of that: police, fire, volunteer fire department, buildings, recreation, senior services, public works. After that position, I went to the city of Detroit, where I was an assistant manager in the grants department. The city was just awarded an $826 million grant from the feds for COVID relief, the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, which Gibraltar was also a recipient of. So there was a one-year position, and then since that time, I have taken the opportunity, some time for myself. My brother and I went in half. It was a dream of ours to get a house in our old neighborhood of Southwest Detroit, in the old St. Anne's neighborhood. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the Ambassador Bridge, old historic St. Anne Church. Father Richard's buried. The Michigan Central train station is just the other way. It's been a dream of ours for a while. Very hard to get property in that area. Pretty much you have to know someone, and someone was just moving on, elderly care, and they said, okay, we've got the place for you. Be careful what you wish for, because you get it. And in my case, our case, as we started peeling back to do some what we thought was general work, we're now down to the studs everywhere, and we're slowly making it a go to bring this back to good life for ourselves. So, and that's where I'm at in my career at the moment.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any clarifying questions or comments? Councilman McNabb, the floor is yours.
Communication is key. How are you with asking questions for help or instructions if you are not comfortable with any task?
Thank you for the question. Very, very comfortable. I don't have any problems. It's better to be refined, to know where everyone's at on the same page. I think that's important, that you have good cohesiveness, especially when you're dealing with multiple folks on multiple projects within a city or in any organization. I'm not afraid. I look forward to any opportunity. If I don't understand, I'm not going to wing it. If there's a deadline that's hard approaching, get in there. And that's what leaders are called for, lead. But it's also important that we have consensus, that there is a transparency, that everyone is working together, collaborating. And I want to make sure that all the pertinent voices at the table are brought forward, and that everyone's thoughts are thought out, and we're reaching the best decision, the consensus for the city.
Council, any clarifying questions or comments? Councilwoman Cosmore.
Okay, when you were faced with limited resources, financial and other, how as a manager do you set priorities for the use of the limited resources you have?
I think it's important, first and foremost, I'd like to govern from a style, my time in Clawson and elsewhere, to try to ensure that we have a very strong fund balance. It's important for when unexpected surprises come up. If I take one example, we had the main park in Clawson, Central Park, underground electrical wires to it, installed back in the 1950s. And this was a couple days before Memorial Day weekend. And then poof, all of a sudden, there was a blow in the line underground. They gave out old wires. And working with our chief engineer, we pulled all the resources together and said, it's important, let's get this fixed immediately, because Memorial Day weekend, we had a lot of folks that were using this very large park in the city. Called Edison out. We weren't sure who was responsible for that. In the end, we were, but I said, it doesn't matter. We've got to get this park going, because the residents want their parks, and deservedly so. So, and that tab on that was about $40,000, and it was important that that we pay that, because we happen to have a good fund reserve balance to take care of that. So for me, I've just come at a position that I want to ensure that we have a strong fund balance. But to your other question, what I prioritize, first and foremost, public safety, and behind that, infrastructure. It's incredibly important. I guess you could say I just can't see straight because I want to ensure that the sewers are strong, that the bridges are in shape, in rock solid and working order, that the sidewalks are good. There's no trip hazards to that if you take care of the little things, other events start to fall in line themselves. But it's important in that 1-2 order, public safety and infrastructure. And then after that, if there's any hard befalling times, to ensure that the other operations of government, the DPW, are taken care of. But if I had to go with a 1-2, it would be public safety and infrastructure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Councilwoman Cosmore, council, any questions or comments? Councilman Molnar.
Thank you. I appreciate being here and,
Thank you.
As an administrator, how do you view your role in local government in comparison to the role of us elected officials?
Quite frankly, you are my boss. I report to you, Mr. Mayor, and to all council members here. First and foremost, you have the vision, and I implement it. But it's also important, very important, that I keep an ear and I respond to the residents, to the business base, to tourists, to anyone that's here for recreational, our lawmakers on the county level, the state level, and on the federal level. Very important to have rock-solid working relationships and to champion myself that in times past of leadership that I've had very solid working relationships with those entities. And when we needed to get things accomplished, especially the fires that come up, that we're able to take care of business.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Katie?
All right. In your role as administrator, who do you feel is the most important group, individual, or organization that you interact with?
Council, absolutely, by far, the mayor and the council. They are the compass that I'm getting my direction from. It's how would I say, it's important, critical to run the day-to-day operations of City Hall. And with the right experience, that can be done, but to provide the vision, the foresight of where we're taking the city over the next year, 3 years, 5 years out, the master plan 20 years out, with limited resources, we want to ensure that I've got a very good team that has an even greater ear to the public that I'm getting my direction from.
Thank you.
Council, any questions, comments? All right, next question for you is, in your professional career, what do you find to have been the most rewarding aspects of any of your current or previous positions, and most rewarding aspects of the position you're sitting here applying for today?
The most rewarding in my career, a couple areas. Off the beaten path, when I worked for mental health, I saw some very tragic things in these adult foster care homes within Wayne County. Some abject living conditions that no one should have to endure. They are the voiceless. They don't have voices. So it fueled my spirit to go in there to make the surprise visits, sometimes 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, to some of the homes that I suspected. There's some select communities out there that just know that you're going to have problems. You've done this year in, year out. And to find problems, language problems, cleanliness of the homes, poor food standards, all that would get documented. And I would forward that on to my superiors at the Detroit Wayne Mental Health Authority for further action. And they would investigate that on the further level. I was just on the ground level. But all in all, and it's, I guess, perhaps a little bit spiritual for me, that I made a difference and I saved lives. And it's at the end of the day, you want to feel that you're making that profound difference, that you really are making a difference. Another area that I felt very rewarding, the biggest project I worked on when I was in the Brownfield Authority for Wayne County, homeless veterans facility went up in Midtown Detroit, the News Center area, along 94 and Woodward Avenue. You may remember the colossal inferno they had back in the 1990s, the Studebaker plant. And it's sad and smoldering remains for a couple years, but then they finally decided, one of the non-for-profits, to redevelop that. but there was a lot of brownfield issues. They made Cadillacs in there back in the day, all kinds of parts for World War II. This place was just a myriad of problems that had to be remediated, even though it was smoldering remains. Think of stuff underground. And it was my biggest project as a brownfield lead to take care of, which was to ensure that all of the federal rules are applied, coordinating with our state partners, the federal partners, the EPA. We pulled out 10,000 gallon underground storage tanks, many of them still full of fluids from God knows when, 50s, 60s, but that's okay, that's part of the business. We pulled these out of the ground. We were able to remediate the land. New soil was brought in. We had to ensure that all of the old soil was taken out. An incredibly complex process. I was in there day in and day out for a few months. And at the end of it all, the land was remediated to a level where someone could start living there, and the places the homeless veterans facilities worked out very well. The last area I'd like to just touch on would be that have made a profound difference was when I was city manager of Clawson. There was some policies and procedures in place that were a little bit, say, behind the times, the technologies. I made an effort wholeheartedly to bring us up to speed, try to make as much as possible electronic, to reach out to all our city employees, to have a very good, strong report, just to get involved, to be the face out there for every council meeting, to meet every one of the citizens that was there, to go out in the community, to go out with the DPW crews at night when there was a main break on one of the water mains, to be there for them. I think you can't be a good administrator unless you're there. You can really roll up your sleeves and make a difference. You've got to know the ins and outs. It's talking to the police officers, it's going to the fire station, it's making sure that you really do know what's going on, because you're living, you're breathing your community when you're a city manager. You really have to know the ins and outs, because Councilwoman, when you talk about limited resources out there, and there's times that, we're in some good times right now, but you just think back to 2008 when we had our last recession. That was a tough one for the area. We want to make sure that if we do have to do any kind of cuts, that it's well thought out, lots of input, and we just know where to strategically make a cut.
Thank you so much. Council, any questions or comments? Councilwoman Wood.
Okay. Do you have any experience with millage requests? If so, what do you feel are the most important aspects of a successful millage request campaign?
No, directly with a millage request, I do not. I did work with TIFs and DDAs when the county was bringing forward brownfield efforts, and we had to capture certain segments of millages for our efforts, which was allowable by law. But when I was at Clawson, I believe that we were tapped out at 50-some mills. My predecessor, actually, there was an effort. Our pension was underfunded in the city of Clawson, and to an anemic level. And I believe, as I recall, the state of Michigan came in and said, no, there'll have to be a millage increase to make ourselves whole. On the plus side, now we were 100% full for our pension obligations, but it did raise us up to our charter limits. And there was no millage increase the time I was there. But I come at a principle I don't like. I prefer not to have a millage increase. I do believe in my heart that folks are paying enough already, not just for the property taxes, but you go to the gas pumps and there's taxes, you go to the store and there's a 6% tax, and everywhere you go, folks are getting taxed left and right. I really try to like and champion working within our means, make sure that we're just getting the best value possible, because I think the residents are paying enough already. But of course, if push comes to shove and that there is something critical that's required, along with good counsel from the council and the mayor, then yes, we'll bring that forward. But in my heart, it's not in my intention to ever try to raise millage rates.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councilman Valentine.
Okay. The city manager could potentially serve as the DPW director, DDA director, on the pension board, HR director, benefit coordinator, interfaces with the planning commission, as well as performs a variety of other roles. How would you address the need for such a diverse knowledge base to be efficient and effective in all of these areas, in all these roles?
A good question. I believe that in my previous role as the city manager for Clausen, I've touched on all of those areas. As I just indicated, I had to work with our pensions, and our pension was in the hands of the state of Michigan. Forgive me, 'cause I can't remember the name of the board. It's likely it is the same group that Gibraltar is using, but we had a regular dialogue to ensure that we were staying at our levels. The actuaries came out, and we were told, and mind you, this was well before the pandemic. They said, we see things trending, so in the future, you should keep banking money to ensure that we're covering our obligations, because the actuaries are showing that down the road, things could turn bad. And of course, everything just went haywire with the coronavirus. So that was always on my mind, to ensure that we might have to fund that yet again someday. And I also had to deal, there was a small pension that the Clausen firefighters received also. So I sat on that board. It was only a couple meetings, but it was just to ensure that everything was going smoothly. Always conscious, because no matter where you're going in City Hall, there's always a knock saying, okay, we need this, we need a fire truck, we need a new police cruiser, we need pension obligations. And that just goes back to earlier saying that it's important to know the priorities, and newsflash, they're all priorities. But it's when things get critical, knowing that, okay, here's what we have, and this is what we need to do to put out the biggest flame at the moment. But Councilman Valentine, I've worked on other areas. I was in a human resource role when I was at Clausen, hired our Director of Public Works, our Deputy Director of Public Works, assistant to the city manager, and our finance director. A similar process to this. I've had to bring candidates in, interviewing, looking for what was the best fit for the city. I've interacted with the boards. Clausen did not have a brownfield authority, but I've always interacted with our neighboring brownfield authorities. The Downriver Community Conference, I've been involved with them. Detroit's Brownfield Authority, the Detroit Wayne Port Authority, and ours. In fact, as my resume speaks, we were given kudos by the feds back in the day. They were looking for much more collaboration among the brownfield authorities. We had 3 in the Detroit area, Detroit's Wayne counties and the Detroit Wayne Port Authority. So we started working together, and alas, for our efforts, we were given more funding. It just shows that when you can have that spirit of cooperation, you can get many things done. And that's how I see the working relationship with Gibraltar. From what I understand, there's a good working relationship. I had a chance to speak to one of the officers yesterday. I came down, I went for a run throughout the city, and saw Officer Scott over near Horse Island. I wanted to check out the bridge, and just asked him, okay, Gibraltar coordinates with other cities, because there's a limited number of officers on duty at one time. How are things handled? And it's nice that there is a working relationship with Rockwood, with Trenton, that there's a nice collaborative effort, and that's something that we definitely want to see strengthened, nurtured going forward, because it's good for the area, it's good for the region, it's good southern Wayne County, southern downriver cohesiveness.
Thanks.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Great. Councilman Cox, I'll actually turn over to you for question number 9, if you're comfortable asking that.
Thank you for coming. And
Thank you.
in this position, you're going to be dealing with multiple outsourced city departments. For example, assessor, building, engineering, legal, planning. But in the eyes of a citizen, they're all simply the city, right? What is your approach to the citizen and to the out-of-office vendors performing their scope of work to ensure that the request is getting properly addressed and communication stays up to date with the citizen and the multiple vendors? Engineering and communication with building and planning, for example.
I would want to have regular meetings with our outside vendors, those that we're contracting with, to ensure daily, if not weekly meetings, to know everything that's going on, to set expectations, to measure those, to have our metrics, to ensure that everything is going forward. I would want status updates from them regularly. And I'd want to protect the city position, almost thinking like a lawyer, to ensure that our needs are being met. If they're not being met, then some proactive, constructive efforts to make sure that our vendors are online. And if they're not online, then we'd be looking for some type of remediation, or maybe putting something out to bid, because first and foremost, there's no greater priority than the interests of the city of Gibraltar. They can't be. And if someone's not pulling their weight, that's detrimental to the mayor, to the council, to the residents, to everyone that interacts with the city, and it's not going to be acceptable. I've had good working relationships with some of our vendors before. In Clawson, expectations were met when we had our financial reviews, interacting with our auditing firm, and I would definitely want to make sure going forward that everything is in line, that we have a strong, strengthening relationship, and that the expectations are put out there, and that they are delivering what they've been assigned to, contracted with, excuse me.
Great. Council, any comments or questions? Thanks, Aaron. Amy, before we get to you, because I'm going to have you ask question number 10, which is a closing question on our end. Council, I have a question or two that I think is appropriate to ask, but is there any other questions you had for our candidate in front of us? I would love to thank you so much for your thorough answers across all the questions we've asked. And
Actually, the thanks is all mine for even for bringing me in for the candidacy. I'm sure it was a very tough field, and to make it this far, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Really appreciate it. And before we get to our final question, which will be delivered by Amy, and we'll give you a chance to ask any questions you have, I like to, you mentioned we're products of all the sum of all of our parts, right? In regards to our experiences and how we've navigated life. And so I have a kind of a twofold question on that, if you don't mind. When I look at your resume and your experience, I love to see like kind of the evolution of individual stories. And you led, when you were telling us about your personal and professional journey, the evolution of your story. And then you also highlighted to us like what was special to you in regards to your experiences. And one of them you initially brought up was the mental health experience that you had. And so I guess, you don't have to disclose any specifics, but I'd love if you could give any color on kind of two things. One is, you served as city manager in Clawson for approximately a year. But you've had longer duration employment in, like, for example, you're a manager of monitoring compliance and mental health authority, it's about a 10-year role. So anything you could highlight maybe the timeline differences there, meaning like a year as a city manager versus the 10 years you spent in that other role. And I asked just on how that related to your story and the decisions you made to go from role to role. That's one question. And we'll start there, and then I'll ask my second one.
If everything, stars, planets, sun were aligned, I'd still be the city manager of Clawson. What had happened, there was a change of city leadership. There was some turmoil that was taking place, and thought that I was brought up in something of a proxy war between different factions of city government. A new mayor came in with her slate, and I was hired by the old mayor, city council. And not more than about a month into her being sworn in, I was asked to resign. So it was nothing to do on my merits or the efforts that I was bringing forward. In fact, right at that time, we called the Citizens Academy one of our projects. Very proud of that. It was for 5 days straight, the major departments of the city, we would bring folks in, and we'd have our directors tell them everything that's going on in the city. So we gave them a chance, a little more transparency to see just how does government work. Presentations by our budget staff, by the DPW, the police department. And that was one of my last projects. But a long story short, it was beyond my control. A new mayor came in, just said that she wanted someone else. As I understand, my predecessor had just about the same amount of time after myself. I can say only great things about the city of Clawson. As a city manager, it becomes part of your fiber, your fabric. Good people. Think of it as a Gibraltar surrounded by land. And I wouldn't say anything bad, couldn't. But unfortunately, there was some unfortunate politics that were taking place well above me, and as an at-will employee, I just serve at the pleasure of the mayor and council, and that was the end of my tenure there.
I really appreciate the transparency. Thank you so much. And the second question is, I'm always intrigued by stories and where you've chosen to take your journey. And so I'm a family first individual, and so I love to hear that you took time most recently for yourself. Because you mentioned that, you stepped out of your last position and took some time for yourself, and you gave us the story with your brother in your home. My question is really just, what brought you here today? What made you go from time for myself to I want to be the next city administrator for the city of Gibraltar?
There is a fire, a passion that I have to continue doing good for others. This day and age, my goodness, turn on any of the TV stations out there, see what's going on in the freeways all around. Our nation, we're not right now, and I don't know how to get us back on track, but in so many different ways of looking at the prism, we're hurting out there. And I've always had this calling coming out of undergraduate studies, a bachelor in science business, my MBA. Could have gone to the private sector, offers from General Motors, turned it down. I thought the role of government was intriguing because I always wanted to give back and make a difference. And in my life, there's been many volunteer opportunities that I have partaken in. In my native Southwest Detroit, a few of our local community groups, I was on their boards. I was on a school board for 9 years. It's always been, and right now, one of the leaders for our biking group, We Bike Detroit is the name of it on Facebook. If anyone's a biker here, open arms, you're welcome to join us. But and in that role, I'm an ambassador to the city of Detroit and our outlying suburbs. It's important for me to give back. And when I see the world as it is right now, and I say, come on, we can do better than this. And if I have a chance to positively impact the lives of 5,000 Gibraltar residents, that's what drives me, Mr. Mayor. I get the chance to make that profound difference. I'm not going to wave a magic wand, but if anyone has concerns that I can address positively, and I can make life easier in the city, and I can provide good cohesiveness among everyone, I'm all about it. Because I feel that there's many, many more years that I have that I can make that difference. And in government, well, it can be a little bit tough at times, but why am I drawn to Gibraltar? I like here. It's reiterated yesterday when I went for a run. I parked at the Detroit River Wildlife Refuge. I got a nice 7-mile run, Horse Island, get a chance to see the bridge, ran all around, talked to the police officer, and I just said, I like this community. And I mean, and it sounds like, oh, come on, big guy. No, but it's pleasant here. It's, as I was talking to the officer, there wasn't a lot of traffic, no one with loud noise, what have you, and I just said, I like the vibe here. This is the community that I would want to live in. And with all of that, win or lose, you've got one very special community, and kudos to you for your stewardship. And as the next recession inevitably comes, it's just how the economy rolls, that you can maintain the rock-solid quality of living standards for your residents here. You've got a lot of special things going on here, and kudos to you for being the stewards of this.
I appreciate
I think
that.
it's pretty special.
It is, and it's good. I mean, again, I guess I grew up just south of us, Melvindale, Ecorse, River Rouge, communities I was also familiar with, and they've fallen on some hard times. U.S. Steel's closed on Zug Island; it's now pretty much dormant, and you see all that and say, it's too bad because it never used to be that way. And it's just nice to come into a community that is robust, that is solid, and a chance to continue on with that to help take it to its next level of growth. I'm all about that.
Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So we're going to go to Amy, but before I do, just one really straightforward question. Do you have any personal or professional relationship with anybody here in front of you or City of Gibraltar at large?
No.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We like to just ask for transparency purposes. Amy, floor is yours.
I have a tie to the Boblo Pavilion. That's where I once worked, but
Appreciate that. Amy, you can take us home with the last question.
I know you took the time to prepare for the interview. Is there anything that you were expecting us to ask that we did not?
well, no, right? Just operating very good, competent, qualified questions, and I would invite anyone, if anyone has any other questions, I don't have a problem leaving my phone number behind. If someone wanted to get together to get to know me better, I'm more than happy to. I'm on 24/7, 365. When I was city manager of Clawson, even when I was taking days off from work, the laptop was always with me. I'm just the kind of guy of, important to delegate, and that's why you have your subordinates beneath you, but it's also important to stay in touch and tuned, and when it becomes your passion in life, you want to make sure that everything is going well, you're always there, whether you're physically here or maybe a day up north, what have you. So, no, I can't think of any other questions that hasn't been asked.
That's fantastic. Well, council, do you have any further questions or comments before we?
What was the name of the former mayor of Clawson that hired you? Was that Paula?
No, Debbie Woolley.
Debbie
Debbie Woolley?
Woolley? Okay,
No, Paula is the current mayor, Paula Milan.
okay.
Thank you, Councilman Valentine. Council, any further questions? Aaron, as we open with, thank you for making the time to be in our, as you put it, special city. We agree wholeheartedly. Really appreciate your transparency and your thorough questions. And if there's no further comments or questions from council, we will let you get on with your evening and look forward to being in touch as the process prevails.
Thank you, Mayor Schumate.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice meeting you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Council, while we're waiting for our next candidate, I would just ask that you just maybe take a minute, make sure your notes are complete as you see fit, and then if you feel comfortable putting a yes, no, or hold as it relates to your initial reaction, recognizing that we have 4 candidates to.
Are we going to turn these back into someone?
I'd love for them to be collected with Katie if that's
Okay.
okay with you all.
I don't know if you'll be able to read mine, I scribble and just put words.
But we,
I want to be able to understand what I write.
I think what would be most appropriate though is probably if you agree to let you all hang on to them and then we can collect them at the end of the process just for documentation because I want to make sure you can have them to digest. So collect them on Monday. Council, while we're waiting for the next candidate, any feedback on the procedural or operational side there? No. Okay, cool.
We going to start with Amy again, or are we going to?
Can we change
Start
it
with
up
the-
so that I don't get 2 questions again?
Yeah, sure.
Start with Arthur? Art, I should say.
Yeah, because if you started.
Start with Art, or you want to start down here?
I'll take 10 after
If he
that.
starts, then it'll pop back to him.
Okay, I'll start it, or it doesn't, yeah, it
Well,
doesn't
I
matter.
don't mind starting it, but if you want to grab the second one, or if we could start with Rick and then he gets.
Yeah, we can start this side. It's up to you guys.
We'll look at that. Councilman Cox will kick it off with you. Next up, we have Ryan.
Brian Mattis. Now, these people all know what our salary restrictions are, or salary, they've all been told?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the resume?
Yes.
You need one? I have them all. This was, that was wrong right there. I believe we have, coming up next is gonna be Mattis. Hope. Let's see.
Flint, Michigan.
I'm gonna use the boys' room while we're still here.
This next one lives in Flint. That's the only way to drive, man. Every day.
My granddaughter lived down here and drove to Flint every day for work.
Yeah, that must be tough.
An extremely long drive for that, especially every day, and she worked midnights.
Oh, I mean,
so-
just print the PDF, that's not the email.
And then she gotta go back and try to get some sleep and then turn around and come back again. Whatever.
Yeah, it's a long drive.
I wouldn't wanna
But
do it.
it's long, I don't, it's your call if we.
It was bad enough driving to Detroit and back.
He said he worked for the Obama.
If we think it's reasonable, I'd love to be able to print her copy just so she has it. Welcome, Ryan.
Art stepped away for a second.
Let me grab him a water here and, thanks.
What are you doing?
Are we having fun yet?
Now we are.
Is that light, is the green light on that microphone?
That's on. Yep.
Well, Ryan,
How are you? Thanks, Vince.
Ryan, we are ready for you and want to sincerely thank you for applying and taking the time to be here with us today. A couple of things I'd like to lay out up front. Number one is these are open meetings, so they are publicly recorded and broadcasted.
Sorry, I
just
got
wanna
a
make
face
sure-
for radio, but yeah.
Appreciate that. Number two, from an operation or procedure perspective, we're going to be going across the chambers so that each individual can ask you a question. And so with that being said, I would love to start the process, unless you had any questions for us opening up.
I don't think so. I'm excited to be here, so thanks for having me and let's get to it.
I appreciate it. Well, Councilman Cox going to kick us off.
I get the honor to start the questioning. This is a twofold question, so I'm going to ask it one at a time, okay? Give us an opening statement about yourself.
Sure. I am Ryan Mattis. I'm very interested in becoming your next city manager. I've worked in local government for the last 5-ish years across 2 municipalities. Before that, I worked in higher ed. So all along, my focus has been connecting people to resources and helping people get to their goals. I've always been kind of the connector in that way. And I see this role being very similar to helping people find the resources they need, connecting the dots, and improving everything we can for residents, employees, and everybody beyond. So,
Okay. What do you know about Gibraltar?
great question. You guys actually have a fantastic website, which was very helpful, that there was lots of information on there. So besides poking around, I haven't been to town a lot previously. I grew up about 40 miles north of Detroit, so I haven't spent a ton of time downriver yet, but I look forward to more time. I know driving around, it reminded me of where I grew up, where there's a lot of houses along the water. So there's the kind of nautical history, and as well as some of the like industrial meets today's needs scenarios where there's growing community, but there's that history of figuring out what's next. And so that's, in my current role, we do a lot of that as well, going from kind of rural to more urbanized. And so kind of understanding those issues are something I know a little bit about already, and I look forward to learning more. Another thing I love is small lots in the communities. I think small lots translate into more sense of community because you get to know your neighbors. Sometimes for better or worse, but you get to know the people around you very well. And I think that builds a sense of community, which I really like about a place like Gibraltar. I think that's very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Council, any questions or comments? I do have one.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to hear your story at a high level beyond the paper that we know you by. So maybe you could, I know you spoke to your, local government experience for approximately 5 years, your higher ed, and how that led to connecting people to resources. But maybe you could just tell us a high level view of how you see your story as it relates to
Sure.
bringing you here today.
Yeah, thanks. Good. Thanks for the question. Grew up kind of near the Thumb, a community called Marysville, and then went to school in Ann Arbor, then moved up north. And I lived up north for a long time, working. I ran a nonprofit right after college. Then I worked in higher ed, worked at churches and things like that. So getting to know kind of the people on the ground and getting getting to know how small organizations work and how that relates with government. After working in higher ed for a long time, I realized I didn't love the kind of monotonous, just going around the circuit of that. So I got my master's in public administration in 2020, the perfect time to graduate with an MPA in 2020, and entered the field, worked in political campaigns a little bit, worked with economic development, and then became the village manager in Ortonville in 2021.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Council, any questions or comments? All right, Councilman Valentine.
Communication is key. How are you with asking for help or instruction if you are not comfortable with a task?
Good question. Yeah, that I feel like I've learned to know that I've learned to become kind of a jack of all trades. So I know what I don't know as well. That it's hard to be a master of everything, and so learning how to ask questions and defer to people that may know more about it, and asking a lot of questions, especially early on with. Being new to a community and just learning the background and, what have we tried before, how did that go type questions are very helpful. So I'm not shy about asking for help. A lot of times my answer is I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to find out more. And I was a history major back in the day, so I love to do the research and dive in and learn a little bit more and help figure things out in that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Council. Any questions or comments? Councilwoman Wood.
Okay, the third question. When you are faced with limited resources, financial and other, how as a manager do you set priorities for the use of the limited resources you have?
Great question. I like it. My current role, we are a very small village, 1 square mile, 1,500 people. So a dense, small area. It's comparable to Gibraltar, just about a quarter of the size and scope. So resources are always tight. So learning where the allies are and how to make things go with what we can, but then I'm shameless about applying for grants or seeking funding. We work very closely with the county now, and I try to do the same to just see what other resources are already available. Or I don't want to duplicate efforts wherever possible. So if that's something we can borrow from somebody or use their expertise. So I always say that it's like fighting with one hand behind your back in some ways in small local government, that there's always a shortfall somewhere. So there's always a gap that you got to try to fill with a little creativity and just do what you can with what you got.
Council, any questions or comments?
What is the population of Ortonville?
Just under 1,500.
What county is it located?
Oakland.
Oakland County?
It's been bizarre. I went from Iosco County I was in the charter township of Oscoda up north, and getting Iosco County to help with things was always a challenge. And then I went to Oakland County, where Oakland County, if you have an idea, Oakland County has a department with 10 people already staffed doing exactly that. And then I know Wayne County is somewhere in between, between those two kind of outlooks for counties. So I'd be excited to learn more and partner with other places like that, as far as possible.
I have a question too. Does the Village of Ortonville have like a public safety department or any of that stuff as well? Because I know that affects the budget quite a bit.
Big time, yes. The village doesn't. We partner with the township around us, and so the village is like the hub for the 2 townships that abut the village. So the village is the central spot. So we have the substation in the village. We work very closely with them, but it's not part of my responsibility budgeting wise. But I'm part of the fire authority, so I help with that regard for public safety. They're separate there, and yeah, I'm very closely connected with fire authority and police, less so budgeting wise, but we work their substation every day.
Okay.
They're right on the main corner of downtown, so they're a good neighbor.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Carlson Band played there, so hopefully competition.
Yeah, there you go. The Brandon High School field is very nice. And
Yes, it is.
yeah, it's a good spot.
People from GM
Oh, tons. That's more than a quarter of the households go to one of the GM places nearby. We're the bedroom community to several.
We did all the
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Council and Amy, for the additional clarifying questions. Next question for you. As a city administrator, how do you view your role in local government in comparison to the role of the elected officials?
Great question. I actually find the role of administrator is a lot simpler than being elected. I feel like as the administrator, I have a pretty wide scope of work and a lot of things to know and understand and have a handle on. As electeds, you get to decide on those things. So the discretion question is always a fun one. As administrator, I've got at the end of the day, it's a fairly narrow, I can only decide so much. So I leave a lot of things up to the electeds to make those decisions. You're an elected, you're 7 members, you get to decide, you represent the whole community and things like that. So I'm not shy about asking questions and getting lots of input. I refer to a lot of the things that you've already created, so stuff like master plans and things like that to get some idea of where we're headed. But at the end of the day, I will ask lots of questions of my electeds and, ask for help on lots of things. So that's me.
Any clarifying questions or comments? Katie?
Hi. In your role as administrator, who do you feel is the most important group, individual, or organization that you interact with?
Great question. Most important can change on a regular basis, but I think the kind of foundational important things will be working with the city council and just as far as direction and where we go on things like that. Internally within the office, I think the finance side is important because at the end of the day, we got to make sure that payroll happens and things like that to keep people happy. So just helping facilitate those kinds of things. But then external partners are also important too. So I learned in my role in higher ed to work with our neighbors and work with people around us. So facilitating some of those relationships are important too. But it's not the end all be all. That's not the driver. But just try to keep up. Build rapport on lots of fronts is important. So yeah.
Thank you.
Any clarifying questions or comments? Councilman Molnar.
Thank you, sir. In your professional career, what did you find has been the most rewarding aspects of your current, previous jobs? And I'll have a follow-up for that.
Sure. Good question. One of my favorites, and it's not government related at all, but when I worked in higher ed, I also got to be the golf coach. So coaching college students and just building those relationships and helping them. If you ever golf with me, you'll see that I'm a do as I say, not as I do kind of coach. But just helping those guys improve their games and things like that. We went from that kind of ragtag up north community college to we missed the cut for nationals by one stroke. So just kind of growing a team and community like that. It was probably my favorite in my professional experience.
Very cool. What would be the most rewarding aspects of the position that you're applying for?
Yeah, I think similarly, I think team building is a huge one. So working within the staff, working across fields and across offices and things like that, and just building community and building relationships. In government, sometimes it's hard to gauge those big success stories because it takes a long time sometimes, or it's across lots of different fields, but everybody plays a role in that. So celebrating the small successes and just moving the needle towards the big things is really big. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it.
You were golf coach at U of M?
No, definitely not. Up north at Kirtland Community College.
Kirtland, okay.
Just a stone's throw from U of M coaching though.
Thank you. Council, any clarifying questions or comments? Councilwoman Cosmore.
I have 2 questions too on this one. Do you have any experience with millage request? And then the second part would be, if so, what do you feel are the most important aspects of a successful millage request campaign?
Sure. I don't in local government, but from my time in higher ed, definitely. The community college is one that, those renewals, but also new millages are a challenging thing. So I was a part of 2. I worked in the admissions office at the time for the first one. And so I was kind of on the front lines of talking with students and parents. And at the time that was on the ballot, it was very fun to talk about. The first one failed. And so I saw how that was communicated and not super transparent. Here's where the money goes. Here's how it works and things like that. And then I was a part of a second one where Kirtland built a second campus, which was a much bigger ask. And to see how that was communicated and the players that were involved and how many I don't know, I ate a lot of rubber chicken, going to visit different, civic clubs and things like that. But just the amount of engagement in a successful campaign versus a lackluster campaign, essentially, I could see very, very easily the difference. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, council. Any other clarifying questions or comments? Councilman McNabb.
Manager could potentially serve as DPW director, DDA director, on the pension board, HR director, benefit coordinator, interfaces with the planning commission, as well as performed a variety of other roles. How would you address the need for such a diverse knowledge based on the efficient and effective roles?
Is that all before lunch? That's,
15 minutes.
yes, yep, and especially if there's an emergency, right? Many of those roles are roles I play now. So understanding the big picture, I think, is helpful. The rising tide raises all ships, right? But also knowing the needs of each group. And so a lot of times, conversations are, if you ask me one question, I'm gonna answer it 4 different ways to say, the DDA, the most important thing for the DDA right now is this aspect, but a resident might say that, or, just to consider all the different things. From a planning perspective, the future land use says we should do this, or, things like that, to consider long-term, short-term, lots of perspectives. My wife loves to hear me talk through things in the evening, because I'll say, the DDA was expressed this is a need this morning, but then the planning commission met right before, and we said that, we're focused on this right now, and then we've got these things coming up. And so to talk through all of the issues, and that's where I a lot of times talk with my electeds as a sounding board for those different needs and different things to consider as we look short-term and long-term at how to address issues. And sometimes the best step is just the next step forward. Sometimes it's very obvious, and sometimes you got to talk through it lots of different ways and look at it from several sides. But it's what we get to do in local government, right? Wear lots of hats.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any clarifying questions or comments? All right, Finance Director Amy.
In this position, you may be dealing with multiple outsourced city departments, such as the assessor, building, engineering, legal, and planning. But in the eyes of the citizen, all are simply the city. What is your approach to the citizen and to the out-of-office vendors performing their scope of the work to ensure that the request is getting properly addressed and communication stays up to date with the citizens and between multiple vendors?
Sorry.
i.e. engineering and communication with building and/or planning.
Yep, thank you. That's a good question. We, so like I said, Ortonville is the downtown hub, and the village is the 1 square mile for a gigantic area that has an Ortonville mailing address. So this is one we get all the time, where people call and say, you plowed over my mailbox and you did this and the village is responsible. And I can say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that happened, but what's your address? And I found out they are in a different township. They're the postal addresses follow the school district, which I think we're familiar with, right? That we have different mailing addresses. So same kind of scenario, but to be able to address the concern, do it in a helpful way, and try to make it an educational conversation. So if it's something that, I can explain to somebody and try to leave them with a better sense of, here was the issue, here's how it's being addressed. And on the back end, knowing the relationship with the different outsourced elements. So to know that, McKenna is responsible to have those planning reviews to us by this day. And if we don't have them by that day, then here's what happens, and things like that. So to understand the back end of things also. So to tell somebody, I'm not going to magically fix that for you in the next 10 minutes, but here's the process and here's what exists. And, I'll make sure it's on the list for the next time that we have an interaction with that outsourced element, and we'll go from there. So try to make it better than we found it with every engagement on things like that.
Council, any clarifying questions or comments?
I do one on something of that, like a carry-on of that question. Sure. When there's responsibilities that are on your table or come in through your office, and then you've handed them off to a coworker or an outsourced vendor, What is your methodology to follow up to ensure that there's progress being made?
Good question, yep. I try to communicate in the same way it was brought to me. So if somebody showed up, a lot of times I try to follow up with either a phone call or gauge those things while they're in the office of, do you prefer a phone call, or can I come by and take a look at the mailbox with you and we'll talk about it then? And, before I pull in the driveway, I'm gonna make sure I've talked to the DPW or anyone like that to make sure I know the best possible answer. And so it's lots of follow-up in whichever way is best for them. I'm happy to send lots of emails if needed. If it's somebody who needs a phone call immediately, I can do that too. So it's I'm no one-size-fits-all kind of communicator. And I'll play to whatever I need to on that.
I guess what I was leaning towards there is if you delegate a responsibility to somebody else for the end user, how do we hold the other people down the line accountable that they're doing their end of the task?
Sure. Lots of follow-up. So right now I have a very small office. And so I'm able to talk to the clerk and the treasurer routinely throughout the day, and I can make sure, they're following up on things that I've said, here's your project and please handle this for this person. And then I'll ask them how we're going to communicate that. If it's a phone call and, we've talked over the finer points, or if there's legalese you need to communicate or things like that to make sure we've got the details down before it's communicated, or if it's an email and you can copy me on it kind of thing. And then following up after and you say, how did it go? You delivered some bad news today. How did it, did it go well, or what can we do differently next time, or things like that. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
All right, any clarifying questions, comments? We just have a couple, one more question from me, and then one more question, which will close us out, from Councilman Cox. Question for me is really simple. We just like to ask this for transparency.
Sure.
Do you have any personal or professional relationships with anybody sitting in front of you today?
No.
Great, thank you.
No.
And Councilman Cox is going to take us home. He'll ask a closing question, but obviously if you have any further questions or comments for us, please feel free to make them. Councilman Cox?
I know you took the time to prepare for this interview. Thank you for that as well. And is there anything that you were expecting us to ask that we didn't?
That's a good question. That's a little curveball for me. No, I actually appreciate that it wasn't tell us about a difficult thing, or what's your biggest strength, or things like that. Those questions, you don't get that much out of those questions, I find. So I very much appreciate to not get those kinds of questions. Had some good ones.
I'm going to ask one more question if council's okay with that. I think one of our interesting aspects of our journeys is kind of the why behind the what, right? And so as we look at your experience, and thank you for summarizing it, you're obviously currently at the Village of Ortonville. Why Gibraltar? What's the driver of you sitting in front of us today?
Oh, there's several factors to it, definitely. I've been in Ortonville for almost 3 years. I find that I've learned a lot of the skills and I'm ready for new challenges in a lot of ways, for some new adventures. And Gibraltar has lots going on. There's lots that can happen in the next couple of years, right? We're trending in a good direction in Gibraltar. So to kind of jump in and join in and help where I can is something I've always enjoyed. And the location is helpful. I've got family in the area, and coming south is a helpful thing. So there's lots of reasons. There's lots of good going on. It's a very nice area to. The Downriver area is one that, like I said, I'm not that familiar with, but to be closer to it, and it's kind of where I want to be.
Great, thank you. Council, any questions or comments in closing? Any questions or comments from you?
No, thank you for the questions. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to hear from everyone too. That's helpful too. What can you tell me about what you see in the role for city administrator? What are some kind of ideal Your next one will, and fill in the blank for me. What are you hoping for in this role?
I'm happy to jump in
Yeah,
there.
hop
Yeah,
in.
I think one of the most important things is being able to effectively communicate with our residents. When it's a resident concern or a resident interaction, not even just a concern, but somebody wants to come in here and put a pool in their backyard and they don't know who to talk to and they've heard this and heard that. Being that resource for them and inviting them back to your office or joining them in any way, shape, or form, that's a big thing that I think is important to us, is that interaction with residents is a key function of the job.
I've joked in Ortonville that these are not my code enforcement shoes. Code enforcement is one of the hats I get to wear in Ortonville too. But I run into more people who are walking their dogs just by walking around the village, and I get to know people that way. So I get to see all kinds of things. And I said we need a line for uniforms in there that's for shoes, because I've worn out my shoes a couple times just walking the beat and getting to know people. So I think communication is huge. So, thanks.
I completely agree with Councilman Molnar. I think for me, like, a couple of things that are most important is culture fit, as it relates to the amazing teams and personnel, and that could also apply to what Councilman Molnar said, which is culture fit within our community and the ability to have constructive interpersonal interactions with our community members that we serve. So that to me is number one above all, and to be a listener and to translate that listening into action where possible. Number two to me is really operational accountability and excellence. We need somebody who's strong in their time management and their execution and has accountable pull through. I think three is really like a safety net for us elected officials in regards to the experience and expertise we require to navigate the waters in front of us. And so having the ability to push and have constructive two-way dialogue so that we vet and exhaust every data point and option so that we make informed decisions as we sit here for our residents is huge. And then the fourth thing is really like the long-term mindset. I think we want a sustainable player in this role that's going to be here with us on the journey for however long we're elected to be here, and thinking about the long game and not just tomorrow. So those are the four things I think are most important to me.
Cool. That's good.
Council, anything else you'd add?
No, I think you guys hit it on the head right there.
Well, we're really grateful for your time.
Thank
First
you
off,
very much. Yeah, I
appreciate
appreciate it.
your energy, appreciate your thoughtfulness in answering the questions that we posed.
Thanks.
And what we'll do is we're going to be debriefing next week as a council, and we look forward to being in touch with next steps.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you very much for your time. I
Have a
appreciate it.
wonderful evening. Appreciate
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie, you can keep me honest on our schedule.
We have time. Our next one is at 5:45.
Hmm?
So we can recess.
All right, so council, our next interview is scheduled at 5:45. I might suggest let's see. Okay, so we'll motion to recess. What time is food arriving?
5.
So motion to recess now, or whenever council so chooses, and we'll have food at 5, and then our next interview following that is 5:45.
Correct.
If that sounds good to everybody, then council, before we leave, or motion to recess, make sure you got your notes down or any assessments you needed to make. And I'd be looking for a motion to recess till 5:45.
I'll make a motion to recess until 5:45.
Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Wood. Can you call roll, please, Katie?
Cox?
Yes.
Cosmore?
Yes.
McNabb? Yes. Mulnar?
Yes.
Schumate?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
All right, council, we'll see you soon.
So we're coming back at 5.
5.
Dinner's at 5, and then interview starts at 5:45.
I'll be back at 5:45.
Yep.
Motion, Sons.
I'll leave this here, so I can turn it back. Okay, I'll see you at 5:45.
Okay. Say hello to John for us. I hope he's feeling better.
Do me a favor, smack him in the hand.
Smack him?
In the hand.
Yeah.
you looked at me like, okay, Rick said to do it. That's the way you do it.
smack him in the head. I didn't have any problem with that. No, he has
Give me a
like a pain block. So he can't feel anything in his arm.
Yeah, but what's that gonna, that's gonna, the paint box is, okay, because it's gonna, he'll know when it's given up. That's all I'm saying.
Smack him then, and then we can see if he's mistaken or
Well,
not.